Bluey is great, and everyone knows that's great. So who could possibly take issue with it?
So there's been some conversation about the show Bluey this week. It began with reports that Bluey had gone woke. One of the last holdouts, one of the last remaining unwoke kid shows, one of the very few to stave off the woke virus, had finally succumbed to the contagion. Now,
oh yeah, terminally online political grifters. For those of you who don't know, this is Matt Walsh, a right-wing political commentator, who is basically the most stereotypical, old-fashioned conservative who refuses to accept the changing times. And here we have a video where he questions if Bluey has gone woke.
Bluey had gone woke, in which case, my kids, of course, will be done with Bluey. And if Bluey has gone down this road, I'm sure that will be obvious in the coming episodes, because once a kid show crosses the woke threshold, as we've seen, it's not long before they have episodes featuring drag queens and gay pride parades, which is what happened with that other children's show featuring a blue dog.
But before we get into it, I'd like to ask you to give this video a like and comment. Also subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications, as it'll really help me out. Anyway, back to the video. Now, to suggest that Bluey of all shows has gone woke is a stupid claim to make. After all, the show has a positive portrayal of a nuclear family and traditional masculinity. So where are these claims coming from? Oh yeah, because there's a small line in this special episode, The Sign, where a kid mentions that he has two moms.
Yeah, like when my guinea pig ran away, my mums told me he might come back, but he didn't. Probably a snake ate him.
So of course, people like Matt Walsh are now labeling the show as woke, because they can't handle the thought of gay people simply existing and being seen. Now the two moms in question don't even appear in the show itself, at least not yet. So there's no way anyone can claim with a straight face that this is somehow pandering to woke leftists. But of course, just like that brief scene from Lightyear, where two women kiss on screen, hyperbolic conservatives will desperately try to twist this moment and frame it as the show trying to indoctrinate kids with the gay agenda. Matt Walsh then labels this one content creator as woke, all because of this one TikTok video, where she praises this moment in the episode, which doesn't make any sense.
And I love it. I think it was a really nice and organic way to do it. It is one of those like really subtle ones that I feel like a lot of people will miss. But in general, I thought they handled it really well. And it was just a natural way to be like, yeah, some people have two mums. And that's just part of real life.
She's clearly not a toxic leftist with a hidden agenda, spewing buzzwords. Literally, all she is saying is that the episode normalizes LGBT people, which is good for representation, and she is 100% correct. By the way, this is Aussie Girl Margie, a YouTuber who specializes in Bluey content. So if you're a fan of the show, I highly recommend checking out her channel. Alright, moving on. So Matt Walsh then mentions how the saying moms could have been a misinterpretation.
Now, there's some disagreement about whether the show really intended to convey that the character has two moms. Scholars have debated this point fiercely. Some have insisted that this was meant in the way that people say pops, like just kind of a slang way of referring to one mom. I don't know if people say mums to refer to one mom in Australia. I don't know. They have all kinds of weird words they use down there.
Okay, the phrase moms, as a noun referring to a singular person, similar to pops, definitely does not exist. As an Australian myself, I can indeed confirm that this isn't some kind of slang we have here. Also, it seems that Matt Walsh is trying to find any sort of explanation that would get rid of any implication of a gay couple being in the show. Oh, but it gets worse, because here's what he says next.
And the left will cry, as they always do, but they'll say, well, but some people have two moms. It's part of life. Why shouldn't it be represented in the show? The problem with that argument is that, no, it's not part of life. Nobody has two moms. Nobody on the planet has two moms or has ever had two moms or will ever have two moms in the future. Every child has one mom and one mom only. There cannot be a second mom.
Wow, that might just be the most idiotic statement I have ever heard. I guess the argument he's trying to make is that people can only have one biological mother. However, that does not mean that's literally impossible for people to have two moms. Like, seriously, Matt Walsh? Are you not aware that adoption is a thing? There are also other options for gay couples aside from that, such as artificial insemination, as well as egg/sperm donations. Same-sex couples can in fact become parents through other means. And aside from people who have same-sex parents, there are plenty of people who have both a biological mother and a stepmom. And in some cases, these people consider both of them to be their moms. This also applies to people with biological fathers and stepdads. So no, Matt Walsh, a kid having two moms isn't the fictional and made up concept that you're claiming it to be. But of course, all of these facts are inconvenient to your anti-gay agenda, so you ignore them to hold on to your bigoted worldview. This is the type of manipulative language that conservatives like Matt Walsh use to attempt to come across as righteous, when in reality, they're just trying to cover up their blatant homophobia. They also have a "won't someone think of the children" mentality, arguing that kids will be confused by the existence of LGBT people.
A kid show that goes along with the fiction that children can have two moms is a kid show that is trying to confuse kids and indoctrinate them into an ideology that doesn't represent reality, but rather distorts and subverts it.
Although, children are smarter than they give them credit for, and there are kid shows that do a good job at presenting and normalizing LGBT topics towards a child audience in a way that comes across as natural. Take for example, the PBS Kids cartoon, Work It Out Wombats. In this show, there's a girl named Louise, who has two moms, and she's fully aware that she was adopted by them, and that she was born from someone else, and she is not the least bit confused by these facts.
I'm so glad you adopted me. And that's my birth mama, Tabitha.
Well, there you go, Matt Walsh. The concept of same-sex parents is not too complicated for kids to grasp. Frankly, I believe the only one here who is confused is you. Next, let's talk about some snide remarks he made about the ending to the Bluey special, The Sign.
Now, before we analyze this any further, let's just watch the climactic scene where Bandit changes his mind about the move. The clip, we should note, has been viewed 20 million times, with thousands of comments from other adults calling the scene incredible and beautiful, a masterpiece, heart-wrenching, and so on. Many adults are treating this scene like it's one of the most profound pieces of art they have ever seen in their entire lives. And that's not an exaggeration, and they're not being ironic. They really mean it. As a real estate note here, you cannot back out of selling your house at the last minute like that. It's a violation of your contract. You'll probably face a lawsuit. So I don't know if that's going to be the first episode of the next season, is Bandit facing a major lawsuit.
Except that's not what happened at the end of the episode, as it was the buyers who backed out, not Bandit. He then tries to claim that Chili's reaction to Bandit pointing out the sign was unrealistic.
If he did, by the way, your mom in the front seat would not be ecstatic with glee. She would be incredibly pissed off that her husband just made this decision without consulting her at all. She didn't even mention it, didn't even ask her, you know.
Except, if you had actually watched the episode, you would know that despite initially agreeing to the move, Chili had come to realize that she doesn't actually want to leave the house, which made her extremely upset.
You think I want to move? Of course I don't want to leave Bluey. You took your first steps in that house.
Which is why her reaction to Bandit pointing out the sign makes perfect sense. Of course, to the surprise of no one, he admits that he didn't actually watch the special in question, and that he is only reacting to this one specific scene. This further shows why Matt Walsh's take here is so bad, as it's not just the moment itself that has gotten people so emotional, but it's also the build up towards it throughout the episode that gives it all its impact. Maybe if he had actually watched the rest of the episode, he might have had a better understanding of why people reacted the way they did to it. Then again, that probably would have interfered with the anti-woke narrative that he's trying to push here. Look, I'm not saying that he has to have the exact same opinion as the general consensus to this episode, but by doing the bare minimum of research, he just exposes himself as an intellectually dishonest scripter. Although, what is interesting is that he acts as if he's familiar with the series at the beginning of the video, when he mentions how Bluey is one of the huge shows out there that isn't woke until the sign aired. I can't help but question if he has even seen the show at all, and if he only cares about whether or not he can make a political statement out of it. Basically, he's come across a popular piece of media and views it solely as an opportunity to push his political views onto people who just want to enjoy it, which is ironic, since that's what the leftists, whom he criticizes all the time, also does. What a hypocrite. It's a shame, because there are so many phenomenal aspects aspects to Bluey, from the music and visuals, the lovable characters, and the way it's able to implement complex and mature themes into short, tightly written plots, which not only engages older viewers, but also helps the child audience grasp these difficult topics. But according to Matt Walsh, none of that matters, because the show dares to acknowledge the existence of gay people. So now it's woke, and therefore bad. But of course, he would sing the praises of Chipchila, even though that show not only lacks the emotional depth that made Bluey so universally beloved, but it's also straight up awful. The Daily Wire just had to make a cheap knockoff of Bluey, because it was just too woke for them. Chipchila may be bland and uninspired, but at least according to the Daily Wire, it teaches the right values. The final point we got to go over is Matt Walsh complaining that full-grown adults, specifically men, are getting emotional over the special episode, The Sign.
Fully grown adults are treating this episode of a preschool children's show like it's the most beautifully devastating work of art they have ever laid their eyes on. This is a grown adult man sobbing uncontrollably over an episode of a cartoon show aimed at preschoolers. This is perhaps the least manly image that has ever been captured on film. It is modern masculinity personified.
First, it's completely normal to get emotional while watching a piece of media, and I don't want to hear anyone using the "it's a kid's show" card, as the series often tackles many mature topics that are specifically directed towards the adult viewers, such as infertility, miscarriages, and the feeling of being inadequate as a parent. Also, the last time I checked, plenty of mainstream audiences consisting of adults had cried at The Lion King, Up, and Toy Story 3, even though those movies have been mainly targeted towards children. And Bluey is one of those kids shows that does an excellent job at crafting genuinely emotional moments. So there's no shame in crying from watching them, whether you're a man or woman. Oh yeah, Matt Walsh also tries to push old-fashioned gender stereotypes, and insists that men shouldn't cry over this, as being emotional is a woman's thing.
And I can maybe excuse some of this to some extent for women. Like, my wife would probably cry if she watched that scene, but she cries when anything vaguely sad or heartwarming happens on screen. I've seen her tear up watching a 30-second life insurance commercial. Women are emotional in that way.
To that I say, feelings are not a gendered thing, but instead they're a natural part of being a human. While of course being overly emotional can be a problem, the issue is that many conservatives like Matt Walsh push for the opposite extreme, of being an unfeeling robot onto men. Matt Walsh's problem is that since he goes all in with his stance, he is unable to understand that there is more nuance to the topic than he realizes. The key is to have control over your emotions, and to let them out in healthy increments, not bottling them up, as that can lead to toxic masculinity. Now I understand that some of you may find this term to be cringy. However, when you get past the opposite extreme of leftists, who act as if masculinity is inherently toxic, there is an actual discussion to be had about it. And Bluey is a show that strikes that perfect balance when it comes to the portrayal of masculinity. As I mentioned earlier in this video, many of the male characters in Bluey are portrayed as traditionally masculine, but not to the point of being toxic. Examples of this are displayed in episodes where the dads partake in games with their daughters that involve traditionally girly things, such as makeup and ponies. Now during these activities, you can clearly see that they are not enjoying themselves. However, they still play along in order to make their daughters happy. This doesn't erase their manliness and turn them into passive and weak beta males. It just shows that they are loving fathers. But of course, Matt Walsh is completely blind to this sort of nuanced writing, as he seems to only be able to view media through his political lens. Therefore, his brain-dead take on Bluey here shouldn't be taken seriously. And that's just about it for this video. If you enjoyed it, then be sure to give it a like, share, and comment. Also, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell for notifications. Anyway, see ya!